Hi everyone. So it's spring. Every spring I grow annuals to plant out in the garden. I grow probably close to 1,500, 2,000 different annual flowers. And today is April 30th. The weather has not been cooperating around here at all. It feels more like November. One week they say it's going to be warm, the following week, and then the forecast changes. So I'm actually a few weeks behind by the calendar, but not by the weather, in getting these plants ready to go out into the garden. So let me show you what I have here and what I did. I have a greenhouse outside, a little pop-up greenhouse that I set up on my deck, and for the next few weeks I'll leave all these little seedling plants in there till they mature a little longer and then plant them out in the garden. But for now, I'll show you what I'm doing here. I have a lot that are on flats that I need to retransplant into individual cells. Now I grow these in my dining room and I work with a very, very small space, but I'm able to grow close to 1,500 different flower plants. So it's amazing what you can do with a little bit of space if you just get a little creative. So what I do is I set up these shelves every year in the dining room area. There's only 2 in here now. There were 4. And I start the flowers by seed in flats. Now these here are zinnias. And I'll just sprinkle the seeds in the flat and keep them watered, and this is what happens. They sprout. The problem with growing it this way, though, is they're not in individual cells like these are here. But the reason for this is because I'm working with a limited space and I'm trying to grow a lot of plants. So up here some more zinnias. These are zinnias. Now these are marigolds that have already been separated. Over here I have a flat of marigolds, and you can see how they grew in the flat, and I need to transplant these into individual cells. I did have 2 flats of the marigolds, and I split one flat already, and here's some of them down here that have already been split and put into individual cells to be moved out in the greenhouse for a few weeks. And there's some more marigolds there, and these are petunias. And up top I have my dahlias. I like to start them early so I get flowers earlier in the season, and these are ready to go outside as well. Let me take you out to the greenhouse. So this is the pop-up greenhouse that I use, and it's real simple to use. It's almost like an outdoor tent. It just pops up and you cover it and you have an instant greenhouse. And then I moved the shelving that I had in the dining room area inside here, and then I am able to put the plants out here and keep them protected from the chilly weather we may have at night. And it's probably about a 20-degree difference between inside this little greenhouse to what the outdoor temperature is. So this shelf here in the corner, these are all trailing vincas, and I probably have close to 600 or 700 trailing vincas. And I plant these in flower boxes that I have along my fence. And here's some dahlias that I set outside. Over here I have some petunias. They've already been transplanted into individual cells. There's some coleus, and there's a few geraniums there, and some tomato plants, and some more petunias. So I'll show you how I do this. I bring in compost from my compost bin, bring it into my garage in a 30-gallon trash can and scoop that out and fill these individual cells with dirt, and then transplant everything. So I'll take you in the garage and show you how I do that. I'm out in my little workshop garage here, and I have my little portable workbench set up in the center, and this is where I do all the transplanting. So here I have a tray of the marigolds, and I had 2 trays that were like this. I don't know how many plants are in here, but there's an awful lot. These are way overdue to be transferred, but because of the weather I had to leave them in here because it's just been too cold to set them outside, and I don't have room in the dining room for all of these flats once I separate them. So what I do is, here are all the individual cells that I use, and I save these from year to year. Some I've bought, some I've saved when I bought flowers from a garden center. Some are given to me. Everyone knows that I do a lot of gardening. So I save them. They're not cheap, they're expensive, and I try and keep the cost down, because the idea of growing annual flowers on your own is to do just that and keep the cost down. So in this 30-gallon trash can is compost that I use, and I mix the compost with sand and also with peat moss, and that's how I get my medium for growing. And I just shovel it from the trash can here into this little concrete plastic mixture container, and then I move it onto this flat, which will have the cells in it, and I'll fill the cells with dirt, and then I'll start pulling these out and transplant them into the individual cells. It's really easy. It's not hard to do at all. And I like my yard and the front of my house to be full of color in the summer, and the best way to do that is with annuals. These annuals will bloom all summer long, all the way into the fall, and there's nothing but color in the yard, in the backyard, and in the front of the house, and it just adds so much curb appeal, on top of my lawn being super green and super lush. It makes your property pop for sure. So let me show you how I do all this, and I'll probably be out here all day transplanting everything that I need to transplant. So this flat here I use I keep it here. You can see it's wet, it's full of the growing medium. I keep this here, and then I'll get a fresh one of these flats when I'm finished transplanting. So I grab a stack of the individual cells, and I set them up in this little flat here. And then I go into the little concrete mixing container here and grab some of the compost here, and I just spread it around on top, fill all the cells. And after they're filled, I go and I pack them. This planting medium here is really light, particularly because it has some peat moss in it. So I like to come back and squish it all down into each cell. And anything that may need a little more, I'll sprinkle a little more in them. Now these plants will only be in here for a few weeks. It's not like I'm setting them out to sell them. Where if you went to a garden center, they may be in these cells for a couple months before they end up in your garden. So after I do that, I just take a watering can and I soak this really good. So when you're transplanting, you want this to be really wet so that the roots will catch in here and the plant doesn't die on you. So after I do that, I'll just scoop out some plants. I'll put them over here so I can break them up, but you can see how many plants are just in this little bit here. And I started them all from seed. We'll just start pulling them apart. Separating the roots. Anything that's real small, I'll toss. I have so many here. Now sometimes when I get a big root ball like this, I may trim it just a little bit. Just grab it and pinch, and if you still have root left, this plant will definitely still take. So then what I do is poke a hole and just put the plant in and push the dirt around it. Make sure the root is down in the dirt really good. Now anytime I have one where it may not have been packed down a little bit, I'll throw a little bit more dirt into that cell. Now I used to buy my annual flowers from a garden center, and it just gets too expensive if you really want to grow a lot and have a lot of color out in the garden. Everything that I grow every spring, if I was to buy these already in the individual cells like this from a garden center, for the amount of plants that I have, I'd probably be close to $2,000. There's no way I could afford that. So these particular marigolds, these are Inca 2. That's what I was looking to see what the mark was on it, or the label. And these will grow to be about 16 inches. I like growing annual flowers that have some height to them. I try and pick what I grow that has height. And they just look nicer in the garden, particularly when you're planting so many in groupings or certain areas of the garden. Some of these I'll give away, but I don't give anything away until after I've planted. I think that frustrates some people that I give them to, but I spent a lot of time doing this, so I'm going to make sure I get mine before everybody else gets theirs. I usually start everything the end of February. And that's kind of why I'm frustrated with the weather, but we've had years like this before. There's not much you can do about Mother Nature. Just poke your finger in there, make a hole, put the plant in, and push the dirt around the plant. It's as simple as that. Alright, there's one tray, so there's 36 plants there. I've hardly made a dent in this. You see I still have some left over. So I'll probably have close to 200 here when it's all done. Now this will take me some time. This is relaxing to me though. I really enjoy doing this. And it's a process that just keeps going all the way till the end of summer. Now after I have them planted like this inside the individual cells, I like to come back with some water, and I have a sprayer, a battery operated sprayer with a little tank, 1 gallon tank on it, and I'll just drench these with water so the roots will catch. Go. Now I have some flats here. I'll transfer them out of my planting flat and put them into their own flat. And then I'll take these and set these out in the greenhouse. And that's where they'll stay for another few weeks, particularly if the weather stays like it is. The marigolds are very hardy. These will be fine out there, and they're very easy to grow. They're almost like a weed, a marigold. But some of the others, they need to be protected from the cooler weather. So that's how I do it. I got a lot of work to do. I'll be out here all day finishing up what I have left to do, and I'll come back and show you the finished product. So it took me about 10 hours to do all the transplanting. Now I'm inside the greenhouse and you can probably hear that it is raining and it is raw. It's like 50 degrees out and they're saying the real feel is like 40 degrees, and it's just been a terrible spring. I ended up with a total of 1,973 to be exact on the count. The number of flower plants that I was able to grow from seed. So this entire shelf here and some of the top, the shelf next to it, these are the Cascading Vincas. There's a total of 750 plants for the Cascading Vinca. And these, they're a trailing type of Vinca, and I plant these in flower boxes that I have hung along the fence. But it's really raining. The wind is really whipping. Here are the Marigolds, and I have a total of 350 Marigold plants. These are Inca 2s. They'll grow to be about 16 inches tall. There's some more on the top shelf over here. Now, this entire shelving unit here is full of zinnias. These are Zinnia precocious, and they get to be about 16 inches, and they just have, and these have a lot of flowers on each plant, and they're large flowers. They're all different colors. The going back to the marigolds are standard marigold colors. They're gold and orange and yellow. And then here, these are Zinnia Giant mix, and these will grow to be anywhere from 40 inches to 48 inches tall. These get a flower that are similar to a dahlia. They're large flowers, and they'll have loads of flowers for cutting and putting in vases. But these are nice. I have one section in the garden area that I'll plant these in, and they're just plant in a grouping, and the flowers on them are beautiful. Here is a tray of pepper plants. I have 2 trays of pepper plants, so it's like a total of 72 pepper plants, I think, total. Of course, I'm not going to use all of them. I'll give a lot of them away, and whatever I can't give away, they'll end up in the compost bin. But I may plant about 10 of them. They're bell peppers. What else do we have? So on top of this shelf here is another tray of pepper plants. And then I have my dahlias in here that I started. These are ready to go out in the garden if this weather would cooperate. Over here are petunias, and the count on the petunias was 100. So there's 100 petunia plants. They're the wave petunias. There's 2 different types. There's a white and there's a white and red flower for these petunias. And these are cascading, so they'll go into a hanging basket. And if I have extras, even though they're cascading, there's nothing wrong with planting them out in the garden. They'll spread. And tomato plants. I have 40 tomato plants, and these are just big boys. There's a couple trays of them. There's a total of 40. I may only use maybe 8 of them, and I'll give the rest away, and whatever I can't give away will go in the compost bin. And here, these are called coleos, and unfortunately I probably moved them out here too early. It looks like the cold may have got to them. Hopefully if it warms up, these will bounce back. They still have some life in them, a little bit. but we'll see how they do. I know in a couple days the temperatures are supposed to go up to the low 70s, so maybe if I move these out of the greenhouse and into the sun, they may bounce back. But if they don't, they don't. And in the back there, they are geraniums. There may be 8 plants there, and I'll put them in little pots, probably around the deck or on the front porch. So there you have it. Here's my annual flowers for the garden for this year, for 2022. There's a lot to go in the ground. It'll take me a week probably to put all of these in the ground. But as the summer goes and these plants mature, the flowers that I'll have in the garden will be really spectacular. So yeah, I think I spent on the seeds about $350. Of course, not all the seeds germinate, but I got a good bit here this year that did germinate. I'm thinking if I were to buy them, I may have saved myself a couple $100 in plants, but this is just fun. Some of these plants you can't get locally here, like these Vincas, the trailing Vincas. I've never been able to find them locally in any garden center. So, and these are really pretty plants, really nice flowers, and they're great for flower boxes or for hanging baskets. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see how these do in the garden throughout the summer, subscribe to my channel. If you're not already subscribed, yeah, please subscribe. Hit that like button for me, and I'll see you in the next one.